to those intent on living quietly. Remember, it isn't just desire for power and money that makes a man humble and deferential towards others, but also desire for the opposite, for a life of peace and quiet, of travel and scholarship. It is a general rule that the externals of any kind, if we attach importance to them, make us subject to somebody. It makes no difference whether we wish to be a senator or wish not to be one, whether we desire to have office or to avoid it, whether we say, "I can't do anything, unfortunately. I'm tied to my books like a stiff," or, "Sadly, I have no leisure for study." A book is an external, just like office or public honors. Why do you want to read anyway? For the sake of amusement or mere erudition? Those are poor, fatuous pretexts. Reading should serve the goal of attaining peace. If it doesn't make you peaceful, what good is it? But it does help with that, which is exactly why I regret being deprived of it. What kind of peace is this that is so easily shattered, not by the emperor or even by a friend of the emperor, but by a crow, a street musician, a cold, or 1,000 other annoyances? True peace is characterized by nothing so much as steadiness and imperturbability. Now, I am being called upon for some purpose. I answer the call, determined to observe the right limits, to act with restraint, but also with confidence, devoid of desire or aversion toward externals. At the same time, I observe other people's words and actions, not maliciously in order to judge or ridicule them, but to better assess whether I engage in any of the same behavior. How should I stop then? Once I was liable to the same mistakes, but, thanks to God, no longer. Well, isn't it just as worthwhile to have devoted and applied yourself to this goal as to have read or written 50 pages? After all, when you are eating, you don't wish you were reading. You are content to be eating in a manner consistent with the principles you learned from your reading. Likewise, when you bathe or exercise. So be consistent in other respects, when you meet Caesar, or when you meet some random passerby. If you keep yourself calm, poised, and dignified, if you observe rather than are observed, if you don't envy people with greater success, don't let externals disconcert you. If you do all this, what more do you need? Books? Yes, but how, or for what purpose? Isn't reading a kind of preparation for life? But life is composed of things other than books. It is as if an athlete, on entering the stadium, were to complain that he's not outside exercising. This was the goal of your exercise, of your weights, your practice ring, and your training partners. You want them now that the time to exploit them has arrived? Or it's as if, in the matter of assent, when faced with impressions, instead of distinguishing which ones are convincing and which ones are not, we prefer to read a book entitled On Comprehensive Impressions. So what accounts for such behavior? The fact that our reading and our writing have never aimed at using in conformity with nature the impressions that we encounter in real life. Instead, it is enough for us to learn what is written on the topic and be able to explicate it before someone else. It is enough if we can analyze an argument or develop a hypothesis. Consequently, there is bound to be frustration when you exert yourself. You desire what is not in your control. Fine, but be prepared to be refused, to be frustrated, to come up empty-handed. If, on the other hand, we read books entitled On Impulse, not just out of idle curiosity, but in order to exercise impulse correctly, books entitled On Desire and On Aversion, so as not to fail to get what we desire or fall victim to what we would rather avoid, and books entitled On Moral Obligation, in order to honor our relationships and never do anything that clashes or conflicts with this principle. Then we wouldn't get frustrated and grow impatient with our reading. Instead, we would be satisfied to act accordingly. And rather than reckon, as we are used to doing, how many lines I read or wrote today, we would pass in review how I applied impulse today, the way the philosophers recommend, how I desisted from desire, and practiced aversion only on matters that are under my control. I wasn't flustered by A or angered by B. I was patient, restrained, and cooperative. That way, we will be able to thank God for the things that we should truly be grateful for. As it is, though, we fail to realize how little we differ from the mass of men. The only difference being that they are afraid they will not hold office, while you are afraid you will. Don't act that way. If you must laugh at someone who is anxious that he won't hold office, then laugh at yourself as well. Someone suffering from rabies and afraid of water is no better off than someone suffering from fever and ready to drain the ocean dry. If you would dictate to circumstance, how can you emulate Socrates, who said, "If it pleases the gods, so be it"? Do you think Socrates would have been as ready to serve on so many campaigns if he had longed to linger in the academy or the lyceum every day, conversing with younger men? No, he would have groused and grumbled, "Hell, here I am in misery when I might be back in the lyceum sunning myself." Is that your job? Sunning yourself? Isn't it rather to be happy, unflappable, and equal to every occasion? How could he have remained Socrates had he yielded to disaffection? How would he have been the same man who wrote hymns of praise behind prison walls? Just keep in mind, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. And among things outside our control is not only access to, but relief from, public office. Not just work, but leisure too. So now I have to live my life among the mob? The mob? You mean crowds? What's wrong with crowds? Imagine you're at Olympia, in the middle of the festival, where you will likewise find some people shouting, while others conduct business on the side, and everywhere people are jostling one another. The baths, too, are a madhouse. Yet which of us does not enjoy the party and regret when it's time to leave? Don't grow peevish about trivialities. The vinegar is bad, it's sharp. The honey is bad, it upsets my constitution. I didn't like the vegetables. Similarly, someone says, I don't like leisure, it's boring. I don't like crowds, they're a nuisance. But if events ordain that you spend time either alone or with just a few other people, look upon it as tranquility and play along with it for the duration. Talk to yourself, train your thoughts, and shape your preconceptions. If, on the contrary, you happen upon a crowd, call it a sporting event, a festival, or a celebration, and try to keep holiday with the people. What could better please a person who loves his fellow man than the sight of them in numbers? We like to see herds of cows or horses. We delight in the sight of a fleet of boats. Why hate the sight of a gathering of human beings? But they deafen me with their shouting. So your hearing is offended. What does it have to do with you? Your power of using impressions isn't diminished, is it? Who can keep you from using desire and aversion, or choice and refusal, in conformity with nature? No mob is big enough for that. Just keep in mind the central questions. What is mine? What is not mine? What has been given to me? What does God want me to do or not do now? It wasn't long ago he wanted you to take time off, to commune with yourself, to read, write, and attend classes on these subjects, all by way of preparation, because you had the time available. Now, however, he's saying to you, it's high time you were tested. Show us what you've learned. Show us how well you've trained. How long do you plan on working out alone? We want to know whether you are champion material or a touring professional pushover. So don't make difficulties No public match is devoid of commotion. There have to be trainers, supporters, many judges, and many people in the stands. But I was hoping to lead a peaceful life. Well, then mope and be miserable, as you should be. What greater punishment do you deserve for ignoring and defying God's will than to be sad, disgruntled, and malcontent, unhappy and short and ill-fated? Don't you want to be free of all that? But how can I do it? You've often heard how you need to suspend desire completely and train aversion only on the things within your power. You should dissociate yourself from everything outside yourself, the body, possessions, reputation, books, applause, as well as office or lack of office, because a preference for any of them immediately makes you a slave, a subordinate, and prone to disappointment. Keep Cleanthes' verse handy. Lead me, Zeus, lead me, destiny. Do I have to go to Rome? Then I go to Rome. To Gyara? All right, I go to Gyara instead. To Athens? Then to Athens it is. To jail? Well, then I go to jail. But if you ever think, when do we get to go to Athens? You are already lost. Either you're going to be depressed when your wish is not realized, or foolishly pleased with yourself if it is. Overjoyed for the wrong reasons. And next time, if you're not so lucky, you'll grow disconsolate when events are not so much to your liking. Give them all up. But Athens is lovely. It would be lovelier still if you could secure happiness, free of emotion, poised and dependent on no one except yourself. And Rome is all crowds and sycophancy. But the reward for enduring such inconveniences is peace. So if this is the time for them, why not conquer your aversion? Why endure them like a donkey hit by sticks? Otherwise, look, you will always have to serve the person who is able to secure your release or the person who can block your way. You will have to serve him the way you would serve an evil deity. There is one road to peace and happiness. Keep the thought near by morning, noon, and night. Renunciation of externals, regarding nothing as your own, handing over everything to fortune and the deity. Leave those things in the care of the same people God appointed to govern them. Will you devote yourself to the one thing that is truly yours and that no one can obstruct? Make that the focus of all your reading, your writing, and your lecture attendance. I cannot call somebody hard-working, knowing only that they read and write, even if all night long is added. I cannot say it, not until I know the focus of all this energy. You don't call someone hard-working who stays up nights with their girlfriend. No more do I. If the goal is glory, I call them ambitious. If it's money, I call them avaricious. If, however, their efforts aim at improving the mind, then, and only then, do I call them hard-working. Never praise or blame people on common grounds. Look to their judgments exclusively, because that is the determining factor which makes everyone's actions either good or bad. Bearing all this in mind, welcome present circumstances and accept the things whose time has arrived. Be happy when you find that the doctrines you have learned and analyzed are being tested by real events. If you've succeeded in removing or reducing the tendency to be mean and critical, or thoughtless, or foul-mouthed, or careless, or nonchalant, if old interests no longer engage you, at least not to the same extent, then every day can be a feast day. Today, because you acquitted yourself well in one set of circumstances, tomorrow because of another. How much better cause is this to celebrate than becoming consul or governor, because you have yourself to thank and the gods. Remember then who is responsible for the gift to whom it was given, and for what reason. With these thoughts, can you doubt where your future happiness lies, or how you will best please God? Is it not the same distance to God everywhere? are not events equally visible from every vantage point.